The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched far above Captain Jiho Park's head. Giant pillars reached toward a ceiling that seemed to touch the stars themselves. He stood in the observer section, watching the most important trial in human history unfold before his eyes. Ambassador Mina Lee stood alone in the center of the hall. Around her, in a perfect circle, sat the representatives of 43 alien species. Their eyes, tentacles, and sensing organs all focused on her small human form. The weight of their judgment pressed down like a heavy blanket. Jiho's hands gripped the rail in front of him. His knuckles turned white as he watched his friend face the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Mina had served as Earth's ambassador for 8 years. She had worked day and night to prove that humans deserved a place among the stars. The Valari Prime Speaker rose from his crystal throne. His tall, thin body moved like flowing water. His voice echoed through the hall without the need for any device. "We have heard all evidence," the Prime Speaker said. "The charges against the human species are clear. They expand too quickly. They fight too often. They cannot be controlled." Mina's voice rang out strong and clear. "Honored Speaker, humans have followed every council law. We have paid our taxes. We have sent our young people to serve in council forces. We have shared our technology and knowledge." The Nexari representative's mechanical body clicked and whirred as it spoke. "The humans speak truth about following laws, but laws are not enough. Your species is dangerous. You multiply like a virus. In 50 years, you have spread to 20 star systems." "That is not illegal," Mina replied. "The Council Charter allows any member species to colonize empty worlds." A sound like breaking glass came from the crystalline delegate. When translated, it meant laughter. "Empty worlds? You took worlds that were claimed by other species. You ignored our mining rights. You built cities where we planned to build cities." Jiho remembered those worlds. New Sol had been built on a planet the crystallines said they would mine in 200 years. The Nexari had claimed mineral rights to the asteroids around New Busan, but the humans had arrived first. They had followed the law that said first settlement gave ownership rights. "The council laws state clearly," Mina said, her voice getting stronger, "any species may claim a world by establishing a permanent settlement. Humans followed these laws." "Exactly." The Prime Speaker's head tilted in what might have been amusement. "Yes, you followed the written laws, but you ignored the spirit of those laws. You ignored the unwritten agreements between older species." "Unwritten agreements that humans were never told about," Mina shot back. The hall fell silent. No one spoke against the older species like that. Not ever. The Aquatic Federation's representative gurgled through their translation device. "The humans are young. They do not understand how civilized species behave. They act like wild animals fighting over territory." Jiho felt anger burning in his chest. Wild animals? Humans had invented faster-than-light communication. Human doctors had cured 3 different plagues that had killed millions across the galaxy. Human engineers had designed the very space stations where this trial was taking place. "Furthermore," continued the aquatic speaker, "human military forces are too aggressive. In the Kepler incident, human ships fired first." "Because Nexari ships were preparing to fire on human civilians," Mina replied. "Our ships defended innocent people." "The Nexari ships were conducting a legal inspection," the mechanical voice of the Nexari delegate buzzed. "Human vessels interfered with lawful council business." Jiho knew the truth about the Kepler incident. He had been there. The Nexari had tried to steal 3 human cargo ships full of medical supplies. When human escorts arrived, the Nexari had claimed it was a legal inspection. The human captain had given them 1 warning before opening fire. The Prime Speaker raised 1 long, pale hand. "The evidence is complete. The Council will now vote." Mina straightened her shoulders. "I request the right to make a final statement." "Granted." "Honored." "Delegates," Mina began, "humans are not perfect. We are young compared to most of you. We make mistakes, but we learn from those mistakes. We have brought new ideas to this council. Human medicine has saved millions of lives. Human technology has connected worlds that could never speak to each other before. She paused, looking around the circle of alien faces. Yes, we expand quickly, but every world we settle becomes a place of hope. We do not strip planets bare like some species. We do not enslave other races like others have done. We build homes. We create art. We make life better for everyone who joins us. Her voice grew stronger. Yes, we fight when we must, but we fight to protect the innocent. We fight to defend those who cannot defend themselves. We have never started a war of conquest. We have never attacked without cause. The hall remained silent. If you expel us from this council, Mina continued, you will lose more than you gain. Humans have always been loyal friends to those who treat us fairly. We could be the council's greatest allies, or... She paused. You can make us your greatest. Regret. The threat hung in the air like a dangerous storm cloud. The Prime Speaker's voice cut through the silence. The vote will now commence. All in favor of expelling the human species from the Galactic Council? One by one, lights appeared above each delegate's seat. Green meant they voted to keep humans in the council. Red meant they voted to throw humans out. Blue meant they refused to vote. Jiho watched in horror as red light after red light appeared. The Valari voted red. The Nexari voted red. The Crystallines, the Aquatics, the Gas Giants, the Silicon Collective, all red. Only 5 green lights appeared. The young species who had joined the council in recent years. Species that humans had helped and traded with. 38 red lights, 5 green lights, 0 blue lights. The motion passes, the Prime Speaker announced. The human species is hereby expelled from the Galactic Council. All human diplomatic staff must leave council space within 30 standard cycles. All human colonies in council territories must be abandoned within 1 standard year. Mina's face showed no emotion, but Jiho could see her hands shaking slightly. Furthermore, the Prime Speaker continued, humans are banned from entering council space without special permits. All trade agreements with human worlds are canceled immediately. Any council member species caught trading with humans will face severe penalties. The mechanical voice of the Nexari added, human military vessels found in council space will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. Jiho felt his world crashing down around him. Humanity had worked for over 50 years to earn a place in galactic civilization. Now it was gone in a single vote. Mina bowed slightly to the assembled delegates. The human species accepts this decision. But remember this day, honored delegates. Remember it well. You have made an enemy of the most stubborn, creative, and determined species in the galaxy. We will not forget this insult. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her back straight, her head held high. She looked like a queen leaving her throne, not a diplomat being thrown out in disgrace. Jiho followed her from the observer section. As they walked through the corridors of the station, alien beings stepped aside. Some looked afraid, others looked satisfied. A few looked sad. When they reached Mina's ship, she finally spoke. Take us home, Jiho. It's time to show these fools what humans can really do. As their ship pulled away from the council station, Jiho looked back at the massive structure floating in space. Someday, he promised himself, they would return. But next time, they would not come begging for acceptance. The blue marble of Earth filled the view screen as Captain Jiho Park's ship approached home. 3 weeks had passed since the council's vote. 3 weeks of traveling through space that now felt hostile and unwelcoming. Every jump point they passed, through every space station they saw, reminded them that humans were no longer welcome in civilized space. Mina Lee sat quietly in the passenger seat beside him. She had barely spoken during the entire journey home. The woman who had faced down 43 alien species with courage and dignity now seemed small and tired. "The President wants to see us immediately," Jiho said as they entered Earth's atmosphere. "Emergency session," Mina nodded. "I expected as much. The entire galaxy will know about our expulsion by now." They landed at the government spaceport in Geneva. Flying cars moved between tall buildings that reached toward the sky. People walked on floating sidewalks between the towers. Earth looked peaceful and advanced, but Jiho knew that peace was about to end. President Soman Kim waited for them in the emergency council room deep beneath the government building. The room had no windows. Heavy blast doors could seal it off from the rest of the world if needed. Around the long table sat the most important people in human space. Admiral Wonho Choi stood when they entered. His uniform was covered with medals from a dozen different conflicts. His gray hair was cut short in military style. His eyes were hard like steel. "Mina, Jiho," he said with a slight bow. "I'm sorry about what happened." Dr. Hana Yoon looked up from her tablet. The chief science officer was younger than the others, but her mind was sharper than any computer. Her fingers never stopped moving as she analyzed data streams from across human space. "The economic impact is already starting," she reported. "Council species are canceling trade contracts. 3 human merchant ships have been turned away from Council ports. Our stock markets are falling." Kyung Bae sat in the corner, almost invisible in his dark clothes. The intelligence officer had eyes that seemed to see everything and remember it all. He spoke in a quiet voice that made everyone listen carefully. "It's worse than economic problems," he said. "Council military fleets are moving toward our border systems. They're not attacking yet, but they're making a statement." President Kim gestured for everyone to sit down. She was a small woman, but her presence filled the room. She had led Earth through 2 wars and countless smaller conflicts. Her voice was calm, but Jiho could hear the anger underneath. "Tell me exactly what happened," she said to Mina. Mina described the trial in detail. She explained every vote, every accusation, every threat. When she finished, the room was silent for a long moment. Admiral Choi spoke first. "We need to mobilize our fleets immediately. If they think we're weak, they'll attack." "Attack with what excuse?" President Kim asked. "They just threw us out of their club. They can't claim we're a threat if we're sitting in our own systems." "They don't need an excuse," Choi replied. "They have 43 species against 1. They can say we're planning to attack them. They can say we're a danger to galactic peace. They can say anything they want." Dr. Yoon looked up from her data. "Actually, our position might not be as bad as it seems. I've been analyzing trade routes and resource flows. The Council depends on us more than they want to admit." She activated a holographic display above the table. It showed the galaxy with thousands of glowing lines connecting different star systems. "These are trade routes," she explained. "The red lines show human trade. Look how many Council systems depend on our cargo ships, our manufactured goods, our food exports." Jiho studied the display. Human trade lines connected to nearly every part of Council space. Without human ships carrying goods between worlds, the galaxy's economy would suffer badly. "That might hurt them eventually," Kyung Bae said. "But it won't stop them from crushing us first." President Kim leaned back in her chair. "What if we don't wait for them to crush us? What if we build something they can't ignore?" "What do you mean?" Admiral Choi asked. The president stood and walked to the holographic display. She pointed to areas of space far from Council territory. "There are hundreds of species out there that the Council ignores. Small civilizations, young races, species that don't have the technology or military power to interest the Council." Dr. Yoon's eyes lit up with understanding. "You want to make our own alliance?" "More than that," President Kim said. "I want to build our own empire, not an empire built on conquest and fear like the old ones, an empire built on cooperation and mutual benefit." Mina spoke for the first time since arriving. The council threw us out because they were afraid of human expansion. If we start building an empire, they'll be terrified. Good, the president replied. Let them be terrified. Let them wonder what we're planning. While they're watching us, they might not notice their own member species getting tired of being pushed around. Kyung-bae opened a folder full of data sheets. I've been tracking this for years. There are at least 50 species in council space that are unhappy with their treatment. They pay high taxes but get little representation. The older species make all the decisions. He spread the sheets across the table. Each one showed a different alien species with notes about their complaints and grievances. The Aquatic Federation controls water rights throughout the galaxy, but smaller water-breathing species get almost nothing. The Valari claim to speak for all energy-based life forms, but they ignore species that don't match their idea of perfection. Admiral Choi picked up one of the data sheets. You think these species would join us against the Council? Not against the Council, President Kim corrected. With us to build something better than the Council. Dr. Yoon was already working on her tablet again. I can design new communication protocols, ways to talk to species that the Council can't monitor. We could reach out quietly, carefully. What about the species outside Council space? Ji-ho asked. The ones the Council has never contacted? Kyung-bae smiled for the first time that day. Those are the most interesting ones. The Council dismisses them as primitive or unimportant. But some of them have technologies we've never seen. Some have resources that could change everything. President Kim returned to her seat. So, we have a plan. We reach out to unhappy Council species carefully and secretly. We make contact with independent species openly and honestly. We build a network of allies based on fair trade and mutual protection. It's risky, Admiral Choi warned. If the Council finds out what we're doing before we're strong enough to defend ourselves. Everything is risky now, Mina said. We can hide in human space and hope they leave us alone. Or we can bet everything on building something greater. Dr. Yoon looked up from her calculations. Actually, we have advantages the Council doesn't expect. Human adaptability means we can work with any type of species. Our technology is designed to be modified and improved. Most Council species use the same tools their ancestors used 1,000 years ago. Plus, Kyung-bae added, we're angry. Nothing motivates humans like being told they're not good enough. President Kim stood up. Then it's decided. We'll call it the Terran Federation. A government that serves all its members equally, not just the oldest and strongest. She looked around the table at each person. Wonho, start preparing our fleets. We're not planning to attack anyone, but we need to be ready to defend our new allies. Hana, begin developing communication systems and new technologies we can share with potential partners. Kyung, map out which species we should contact first. Mina, you'll lead our diplomatic efforts. And Ji-ho, she said, turning to the captain, you'll command our first contact missions. You've seen how the Council treats species they consider inferior. Show the galaxy that humans are different. As the meeting ended, Ji-ho felt something he hadn't felt since the Council trial. Hope. The aliens had thrown humanity out because they were afraid of what humans might become. Soon, they would find out if their fears were justified. Outside the meeting room, Earth continued its quiet rotation around the sun. But everything had changed. Humanity was no longer trying to fit into someone else's vision of galactic civilization. They were going to build their own. Commander Taiho Nam's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Aqua system. Through the view screen, he could see 3 blue-green worlds orbiting a gentle yellow star. These were the homeworlds of the Meridians, one of the first species humanity hoped to contact. 6 months had passed since the emergency meeting on Earth. 6 months of careful planning and secret preparation. Now it was time to see if President Kim's plan could actually work. Scanning shows massive underwater cities on all 3 planets, reported his navigation officer. Population estimates in the billions, but I'm also detecting large areas of emptiness. Taeho frowned. Emptiness? Dead zones, sir. Areas where nothing lives. The water itself seems poisoned. Dr. Ari Song looked up from her biology station. She was the best xenobiologist in human space, and her job was to help make contact with alien species that humans had never met before. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her eyes were bright with curiosity. The Council files mentioned industrial accidents in Meridian space, she said. But they didn't give details. A communication signal reached their ship. The voice that came through their translator sounded like flowing water mixed with musical notes. Unknown vessel, you have entered Meridian territory. State your purpose or leave immediately. Taiho activated the communication system. This is Commander Taiho Nam of the human vessel Busan. We come in peace seeking dialogue with the Meridian government. There was a long pause. When the voice returned, it sounded suspicious. Humans? The council species that was recently expelled? Why do you come to our space? Because we're not council anymore, Taiho replied honestly. We were thrown out. Now we're looking for friends and allies who might understand what it's like to be ignored by the powerful. Another pause. Longer this time. Follow the beacon we are transmitting. Any aggressive action will result in your destruction. Their ship was guided to the second planet in the system. As they descended through the atmosphere, Taiho could see the damage more clearly. Huge sections of ocean were brown and lifeless. Empty platforms floated on the surface like dead metal islands. Those are mining platforms, Dr. Song observed. Someone strip-mined their oceans. They landed at an underwater city protected by a massive energy dome. The water around the dome was clean and blue, but beyond it stretched kilometers of polluted wasteland. The Meridian who met them looked like a cross between a dolphin and an octopus. Her skin was silver blue and constantly shifting patterns of light moved across her body. She moved through the water-filled chamber with graceful ease. I am Prime Current Aquavel, she said through a translation device. I speak for this city. Why do humans seek contact with Meridians? Taiho and Dr. Song stood in their environmental suits in the air-filled section of the chamber. Between them was a wall of clear material that let them speak while staying in their preferred environments. Because the council treated us badly, Taiho said. And from what we can see, they treated you badly too. The patterns on Aquavel's skin flashed angry red. The council gave mining rights to the Nexari Collective. They said Meridians were too primitive to use our own resources efficiently. The Nexari took 90% of our precious metals and left us with poisoned water. Dr. Song leaned forward. How long ago did this happen? 50 years. Before that, our 3 worlds were paradise. Now only small areas are safe for our children to live. Taiho felt anger burning in his chest. The same council that had called humans too aggressive had allowed the destruction of entire worlds. What if I told you that humans might be able to help clean your oceans? He asked. Aquavel's skin patterns shifted to surprised yellow. How? Dr. Song activated a holographic display. Human technology includes advanced water purification systems. We've cleaned polluted oceans on several of our own worlds. It takes time, but it works. And what would humans want in return? Aquavel asked. The patterns on her skin were now cautious blue. Partnership, Taiho replied. Mutual defense, fair trade, a voice in decisions that affect both our species. The Meridian was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again. The council promised us many things over the years: protection from pirates, fair treatment in trade disputes, clean technology for our industries. They delivered nothing but excuses and demands for higher taxes. She swam closer to the barrier between them. If humans are different, prove it. Show us your water cleaning technology. If it works, we will consider your proposal. Dr. Song opened her equipment case. I brought a small demonstration unit. May I test it on a sample of your polluted water? For the next 3 hours, Dr. Song worked with Meridian scientists to test human water purification technology. The Meridians were amazed when the small human device turned a container of poisoned brown water into clean, drinkable liquid in just minutes. "How is this possible?" asked one of the Meridian scientists. "We use a combination of biological filters and energy fields," Dr. Song explained. "The biological part breaks down toxins. The energy field removes heavy metals and other contaminants." Aquavel's skin patterns had changed to excited gold. Could this technology work on a large scale? With enough time and resources, yes, Dr. Song replied. "We would need to build treatment stations and train your people to operate them. But it's definitely possible." Meanwhile, Taiho was meeting with other Meridian leaders. They told him about the many ways the council had failed them. High taxes with few benefits, trade agreements that favored older species, military protection that never came when pirates attacked their merchant ships. "The council sees us as children who need guidance," one leader explained. "They make decisions about our worlds without asking what we want. Humans believe every species should control their own destiny," Taiho replied. "We want partners, not servants." Over the following days, more meetings took place. Dr. Song worked with Meridian scientists to design larger water treatment systems. Taiho discussed defense agreements and trade partnerships with government officials. The breakthrough came when Dr. Song discovered something unexpected. The Meridians had developed a type of underwater farming that could produce more food than any land-based agriculture. Their crops grew incredibly fast and were packed with nutrients. "This could solve food shortages throughout the galaxy," she told Taiho excitedly. "If we could adapt this technology for different environments." "You want to share our farming methods?" asked Aquavel. "The council said our agriculture was inefficient and outdated." "The council was wrong," Dr. Song replied. "Your farming technology is actually more advanced than anything humans have developed. We could learn a lot from each other." The negotiations continued for 2 weeks. Finally, Prime Current Aquavel called a meeting of all the city leaders in their region. They spoke in their own language for hours, while Taiho and Dr. Song waited nervously. When the meeting ended, Aquavel's skin showed patterns they had never seen before. Dr. Song's translator identified them as hopeful determination. "The Meridians of this system agree to join your Terran Federation," Aquavel announced, "but we have conditions." "Name them," Taiho said. "First, Meridians must have equal votes in all decisions that affect us. Second, humans must begin cleaning our oceans within 1 year. Third, if other species attack Meridian worlds, humans must help defend us." "And in return?" Taiho asked. "Meridians will share our farming technology and underwater manufacturing techniques. We will provide safe harbors for human ships in our space. We will vote with humans in the Federation Council." Taiho extended his hand toward the barrier. Aquavel pressed one of her tentacles against it from the other side. "Welcome to the Terran Federation," Taiho said. As their ship prepared to leave Meridian space, Dr. Song was already working on plans for ocean cleanup systems. The first alien species had joined their cause, but she knew this was just the beginning. "Where to next?" Taiho asked. Dr. Song pulled up a star chart. "The hive clusters. If we can make contact with a collective intelligence, we'll prove that the Federation can work with any type of species." Taiho smiled. The Council had thrown humanity out because they were different. Now that difference was becoming their greatest strength. Director Shung-Oh floated in his construction suit outside the growing framework of New Geneva Station. Around him, thousands of workers from a dozen different species moved like busy ants, welding metal beams and installing complex systems. The station was already larger than any human space facility had ever been. 2 years had passed since the Meridians joined the Terran Federation. Since then, 9 more species had signed partnership agreements. The Federation now controlled 47 star systems and was growing every month. Director O came a voice through his communication device. "The crystalline delegation has arrived for the ceremony." Seung looked toward the docking bay where a ship that looked like a flying diamond was approaching. The crystallines had been the fifth species to join the Federation. Unlike the others, they had left Council space completely, abandoning their old worlds to join the human alliance. "Understood," he replied. "Make sure their quarters have the proper light frequencies. Remember, they eat sunlight, not food." He pushed off from the station's outer hull and flew toward the main airlock. As he moved through the corridors, he passed aliens of all shapes and sizes. Meridians swam through water-filled tubes that ran alongside the regular hallways. Hive cluster drones scurried through maintenance tunnels, constantly repairing and improving the station's systems. The main assembly hall was packed with representatives from all 12 Federation species. At the center of the room stood Engineer Bora Han, explaining her latest project to a mixed group of humans and aliens. "The new water recycling system combines meridian biological filters with human energy technology," she was saying. "It's 90% more efficient than anything the Council uses." Next to her, Junho Kang held up a small device that pulsed with soft green light. "And this biocomputer uses hive cluster organic circuits with human programming. It can solve problems that would take Council computers days to figure out." Seung smiled as he watched the demonstration. This was exactly what President Kim had envisioned. Different species working together, each contributing their best knowledge and technology. The crystalline delegate approached him. When it spoke, musical tones came from its translucent body. "Director, oh, this station is remarkable. The combination of technologies from so many species creates something entirely new." "That's the idea," Seung replied. "The Council builds everything the same way their ancestors did. We're trying something different." Through the large windows of the assembly hall, he could see Federation ships arriving and departing constantly. Trade vessels carried goods between member worlds. Diplomatic ships brought new species to meet with Federation representatives. Construction ships hauled materials for building more stations like New Geneva. "The growth has been incredible," said a voice behind him. Seung turned to see Admiral Jiho Park, now the Federation's highest-ranking military officer. His uniform displayed patches from all 12 member species. "Almost too incredible," Jiho continued. "Our success is making the Council nervous." Seung nodded. Intelligence reports showed Council fleets moving closer to Federation borders. Trade restrictions were getting tighter. Some Council species were being punished just for talking to Federation representatives. "Have you heard the latest?" Jiho asked quietly. 3 more Council species have sent secret messages asking about joining us." "Which ones?" "The thermal singers, the crystal borers, and the void swimmers. All of them are tired of paying Council taxes while getting nothing in return." Seung looked around the busy assembly hall. Representatives from 12 species were working together on dozens of different projects. No one was giving orders. No one was being ignored. Every voice mattered equally. "The Council is starting to realize they made a mistake," he said. Engineer Bora Han approached them, her face excited. "Director, you need to see this. The Joint Human Meridian Water Project on Aqua Prime is working better than we hoped." Activated a holographic display that showed one of the Meridian homeworlds. Large sections of ocean that had been brown and dead 2 years ago were now bright blue and full of life. "The cleanup is ahead of schedule," she explained. "Meridian sea life is returning to areas that were poisoned for 50 years. Their population is already growing again." "What about food production?" Seung asked. Junho Kang joined the conversation. "The underwater farms are producing 3 times more food than before the pollution. We're adapting meridian growing techniques for use on dry worlds, too." "The Council said meridians were primitive," Jiho observed. "Turns out their agriculture is the most advanced in the galaxy. Similar success stories were happening throughout Federation space. Human medical technology was saving lives on alien worlds. Alien sciences were solving problems that had puzzled humans for decades. Every partnership made both species stronger." "Director O, came an announcement through the station's communication system. Priority message from Earth. Seung made his way to the communication center. On the screen, President Kim appeared, looking tired but determined. Seung, I need a status report. The council is demanding a meeting with our representatives. What kind of meeting? Seung asked. They claim they want to discuss trade agreements, but intelligence suggests they're planning something more aggressive. Seung thought for a moment. The Federation is stronger than they expected, isn't it, President? Kim nodded. Much stronger. Our alliance network now includes 47 systems. Our combined military is larger than most council fleets. Our technology is advancing faster than theirs. So they're scared. Terrified, the president confirmed. They thought expelling us would make us disappear. Instead, we've become a rival power. Through the communications center's windows, Seung could see the incredible sight of New Geneva Station. Ships from 12 different species docked at the same facility. Alien workers and human engineers collaborated on projects that neither could complete alone. What are your orders? He asked. Keep building, President Kim replied. Keep growing, but also start preparing for trouble. The council won't let us continue expanding without a fight. After the communication ended, Seung returned to the assembly hall. The ceremony was beginning. Representatives from all 12 Federation species stood together as Admiral Jiho Park officially declared New Geneva Station operational. This station represents everything the Terran Federation stands for, Jiho announced. Cooperation instead of domination. Innovation instead of tradition. Hope instead of fear. The crowd cheered in a dozen different languages. Some species made musical sounds. Others flashed lights. The hive clusters created patterns with their movements, but Seung noticed something else in the celebration. Determination. Every being in that hall knew that their success had made them enemies. The council would not allow the Federation to continue growing without interference. As the ceremony concluded, Engineer Borahan approached him again. Director, I've been thinking about our defensive capabilities. With hive cluster biotechnology and meridian underwater manufacturing, we could build weapon systems the Council has never seen. Weapons that look like something else until activated, added Junho Kang. Bioships that appear to be space whales. Defense stations that look like asteroids. Seung considered this. The Federation had been built for peace and cooperation, but if war came, they would need to be ready. Start small. Projects, he decided, research only. We're not planning to attack anyone, but we need to be able to defend ourselves. As night cycle began on New Geneva Station, the lights dimmed, but the work continued. In the meridian sections, underwater gardens grew food for a dozen species. In the human quarters, engineers designed new technologies. In the hive cluster tunnels, organic computers calculated trade routes and resource distributions. The Council had thrown humanity out because they were afraid of human expansion and aggression. Now they faced something much more dangerous than a single aggressive species. They faced an alliance of equals, working together for a common goal, and that alliance was growing stronger every day. Far away in Council space, emergency meetings were being called. Ancient species that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years were finally beginning to understand what they had created by rejecting humanity. The Terran Federation was no longer a small group of outcasts. It was becoming an empire, and unlike the Council's empire built on fear and control, this one was built on hope and partnership. That made it much more dangerous to the old order. The Valari Prime Speaker's crystal throne glowed with angry red light as he addressed the emergency council session. Around the Great Hall, representatives from 43 species listened with growing concern to the report from their intelligence. Services. The Human Alliance now controls 62 star systems, the Prime Speaker announced. Their military fleet has grown to over 3,000 ships. 15 species have left Council space to join their Federation. Counselor Nexari Prime's mechanical voice buzzed with electronic anger. This is intolerable. We expelled the humans to contain their expansion. Instead, they have become a greater threat than before. Admiral Jiho Park would have smiled if he could have heard that conversation. But at that moment, he was standing in the command center of New Geneva Station, watching Federation ships patrol the border with Council space. Intelligence Agent C.O. Lim had just delivered troubling news. Council fleets are massing at 3 different points along our border, C.O. reported. Over 500 ships at each location. They're calling it training exercises, but the formations look like attack positions. President Kim's face appeared on the main communication screen. She was calling from Earth, where she was meeting with the Federation Council, representatives from all 15 member species. How long before they're ready to attack? She asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3, Jiho replied. They're waiting for more ships to arrive. But, Madam President, there's something else. He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Council fleet positions. Blue dots showed Federation forces, but there were also green dots scattered throughout Council space. What? Are the green markers? President Kim asked. SEO Lim stepped forward. Those are Council species that have sent us secret messages. They want to join the Federation, but they're afraid to leave Council space openly. How many? 18 species. Madam President, if they all joined us, the Council would lose almost half their membership. The President was quiet for a moment. And if war starts? Some of them might switch sides during the fighting, Jiho said. But we can't count on that. We need to prepare for the worst. Meanwhile, in the deep tunnels beneath New Geneva Station, Engineer Bora Han was working frantically on new defensive systems. Around her, human technicians and hive cluster drones installed biomechanical components that looked like living metal. The adaptive shielding is ready for testing, she announced to Junho Kang, who was monitoring energy readings. If this works, Council energy weapons will be much less effective against our ships. The technology combined human shield generators with hive cluster organic computers that could analyze incoming weapons and adapt defenses in real time. It was completely different from anything the Council had ever seen. What about the surprise weapons? Junho asked. Bora smiled grimly. The Council thinks they know everything about human military technology. They're wrong. She led him to a sealed bay where a strange ship floated in zero gravity. It looked like a space whale, a massive organic creature with no visible weapons or technology. But hidden inside its biomechanical body were some of the most advanced weapon systems humans had ever built. Meridian bioships, Bora explained. They look like harmless space creatures until they attack. We've built 50 of them. In another part of the station, Fleet Commander Yuna Ju was training Federation pilots from 6 different species. The hangar bay was filled with fighters that combined technologies from multiple worlds. Some could operate in space, atmosphere, and underwater. Others could change their shape during combat. Remember, Yuna told her mixed squadron, Council, pilots are trained to fight enemies that behave like they do. We don't behave like them. Use that advantage. The pilots nodded, or made whatever gestures their species used for agreement. Humans, Meridians, Crystallines, and others were learning to fight as a unified force. Back in the command center, more troubling reports were coming in. Agent Seo Lim looked worried as she read the latest intelligence. The Council has issued an ultimatum, she announced. They're demanding that all Federation species return to Council control within 30 days. If we refuse, they'll use military force to restore galactic order. Restore order? Jiho laughed bitterly. They mean restore their control over everyone else. President Kim's image flickered on the screen again. The Federation Council has met and voted. We will not surrender to Council threats. If they want a war, they'll get one. What about the neutral systems? Jiho asked. The species that aren't in the Council or the Federation? Many are watching to see who wins, the President replied. If we can prove the Federation is stronger than the Council, more will join us. Over the next 2 weeks, both sides prepared for war. Council fleets moved into attack positions. Federation ships took defensive stances around their most important worlds. Diplomats from neutral species fled to safe distances, not wanting to be caught in the coming battle. The first clash came at the edge of the Kepler system, where humans had first been accused of being too aggressive. A council patrol encountered a Federation scout ship and ordered it to surrender. Commander Taiho Nam, now in charge of Federation border security, was aboard that scout ship. He looked at the 6 council vessels surrounding his single ship and activated his communication system. "This is Federation space," he announced calmly. "You have no authority here." The council captain's reply came in the arrogant tone humans had learned to hate. "By order of the Galactic Council, this system is under council protection. Surrender or be destroyed." "I have a better idea," Taiho replied. "You leave now, or learn why the council was afraid of humans in the first place." The council ships opened fire, expecting to destroy the small Federation vessel quickly. Instead, their energy beams seemed to bend around Taiho's ship without causing damage. The adaptive shielding was working perfectly. "Impossible," came the shocked voice of the council captain. "You taught us that impossible is just another word for something you haven't figured out yet," Taiho replied. His ship's weapon systems activated, but instead of the energy cannons the council expected, organic-looking tentacles emerged from hidden ports. These biomechanical weapons fired projectiles that moved like living creatures, seeking their targets with intelligent precision. 3 council ships were disabled in the first attack. The other 3 tried to retreat, but Federation reinforcements had already arrived. Within minutes, the entire council patrol was captured or destroyed. News of the battle spread throughout the galaxy within hours. The mighty council forces had been defeated by a single Federation ship. Species throughout council space began asking questions about their government's military capabilities. In the council chamber, the prime speaker's throne was now glowing with panicked white light. "How is this possible? Our intelligence said Federation ships were inferior to council vessels." "Our intelligence was wrong," Nexari Prime admitted. "The humans have developed technologies we don't understand. Then we use overwhelming force," declared the Aquatic Federation representative. "Send everything we have. Crush them before they can develop more surprises." But even as the council planned their major attack, Agent Co. Lim was receiving secret messages from species inside council space. The defeat at Kepler had convinced many that the Federation might actually win a war against their former masters. 3 more species have asked for immediate Federation membership, she reported to Admiral Jiho. "They want protection before the Council can punish them for switching sides." Jiho studied the tactical displays showing both fleets preparing for battle. The Council still had more ships, but Federation technology was proving superior. More importantly, the Council was fighting to maintain control over unwilling subjects. The Federation was fighting for the right to exist. "Send a message to all Council species," he decided. "Tell them the Federation offers protection to any world that wants to be free, but they need to decide now, before the shooting really starts." As his message spread throughout the galaxy, hundreds of worlds began making the most important decision in their history: stay with the old order that had failed them, or risk everything on the hope that the Federation represented something better. Real war was about to begin. The Council's war fleet was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. 8,000 ships from 43 different species moved through space like a dark storm cloud. At their head flew the massive flagship of the Valari, Prime Speaker, a crystal mountain the size of a small moon. Admiral Wanho Choi watched them approach on the tactical display aboard his command ship. The Federation fleet was much smaller, only 3,000 vessels, but every ship incorporated technologies the Council had never seen before. "All ships report ready," announced Fleet Commander Yuna Ju from her position at the communications station. "Bioships are in position and maintaining camouflage. Adaptive shields are at full power." Wanho nodded grimly. This battle would decide the fate of the galaxy. If the Federation lost, humanity and all their allies would be crushed. If they won, the old order would collapse forever. "Sir," called the sensor operator, "we're receiving a transmission from the Council flagship." The image of the Valari Prime speaker appeared on the main screen. His crystalline form glowed with angry red light as he spoke. "Admiral Choi, this is your final chance to surrender. Return to your home systems and dissolve your illegal alliance. The Council offers mercy to those who submit willingly." Wanho stepped forward, his face calm but determined. "Prime Speaker, we reject your demands. The Terran Federation is a free alliance of equal partners. We will not bow to tyrants who see other species as slaves." "Then you have chosen destruction," the Prime Speaker replied. "The Council will restore order to the galaxy." The transmission ended. For a moment, space was silent except for the hum of ship engines and the quiet voices of crew members preparing for battle. "All Federation ships," Wanho announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Admiral Choi. Today we fight not just for our own freedom, but for the freedom of every species in the galaxy. Show them what cooperation can accomplish." The HFY's Council fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams lit up space like deadly fireworks. But when the weapons struck Federation ships, something impossible happened. The energy seemed to bend around the hulls, causing minimal damage. "Adaptive shielding is working perfectly," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy weapons are only operating at 30% effectiveness. On the Council flagship, alarms were screaming. Our weapons are having no effect," reported the Nexari tactical coordinator. "This is impossible." "All ships, increase power to maximum," ordered the Prime Speaker. "Overwhelm their defenses." But the Federation ships weren't just defending. As the Council forces concentrated their fire, strange new vessels began emerging from what looked like empty space. The bioships that had been disguised as asteroids and space creatures suddenly revealed their true nature. Min Park led a squadron of hybrid fighters that seemed to dance through space. Her ships could change shape during combat, becoming long and thin to avoid enemy fire, then expanding to launch their own attacks. The Council pilots had never faced anything like them. "Council squadron approaching from Sector 7, she announced over her communication system. "Beginning attack run." Her fighters swarmed around the larger Council vessels like angry insects. Their biomechanical weapons fired projectiles that moved with intelligent purpose, seeking out weak points in enemy armor and shields. Meanwhile, Dr. Hana Yoon's greatest invention was about to change the battle completely. Deep inside several Federation ships, organic computers created by Hive Cluster Biotechnology were analyzing every Council weapon and defense system. "Pattern analysis complete," announced the ship's biocomputer in a voice that sounded almost alive. "Enemy shield frequencies identified. Adaptive weapons are ready." The Federation ships suddenly began firing weapons that looked like nothing anyone had ever seen. Energy beams that changed color and frequency in mid-flight, perfectly tuned to penetrate Council shields. Missiles that split into dozens of smaller projectiles, each one seeking a different target. The Council formation began to break apart as ships found themselves unable to defend against attacks specifically designed to counter their defenses. "This is impossible," repeated the Nexari coordinator. "How can they adapt so quickly?" The answer came from Agent Co. Lim, who was monitoring enemy communications from her position aboard Admiral Wanho's flagship. "Sir, we're intercepting panic messages from Council ships. They're reporting equipment failures and communication breakdowns." But it wasn't equipment failure. Hidden among the Federation fleet were small ships crewed entirely by Hive Cluster drones. These vessels were releasing tiny biomechanical creatures that attached themselves to Council ships and began interfering with their systems. The creatures looked like space bacteria, too small for most sensors to detect, but they carried advanced computer viruses designed by human programmers and Hive Cluster bioengineers working together. "Their computer systems are being infected," reported the tactical officer. "Enemy coordination is breaking down." The tide of battle was turning, but the Council still had one advantage: numbers. Even with their technological superiority, the Federation was outnumbered almost 3-1. For every council ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. "We're taking heavy casualties," Fleet Commander Yuna reported. "Meridian bioships are holding up well, but our human vessels are taking damage." That's when Commander Taiho Nam's diplomatic work from the past months finally paid off. As the battle raged, new signals began appearing on the Federation sensors. Ships were approaching from deeper in Council space. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving friendly signals from unknown vessels." On the main screen, hundreds of ships appeared. Council designs, but flying Federation colors. They were vessels from the 18 species that had secretly agreed to join the Federation. "This is the Thermal Singer Fleet," came a musical voice over the communication system. "We stand with the Federation. Crystal Borer squadrons reporting for duty," announced another voice. "Void Swimmer fleets ready to fight for freedom," called a third. The Council forces suddenly found themselves attacked from behind by their own former allies. Ships that should have been reinforcing the Council fleet were instead firing on Council vessels. Chaos spread through the enemy formation as species that had served the Council for centuries turned their weapons on their former masters. Some Council captains couldn't tell who was friend and who was enemy anymore. "Betrayal!" screamed the Prime Speaker over an open channel. "Traitors and rebels will be crushed!" But his crystal flagship was already under attack from ships of 3 different species that had once sworn loyalty to the Council. The massive vessel's shields were failing under the combined assault. Admiral Wanho saw his chance. "All ships, concentrate fire on the Council flagship. If we can take out their command ship, their coordination will collapse completely." Federation vessels from across the battlefield converged on the Prime Speaker's ship. Bioships that had been fighting individually formed up into attack formations. Hybrid fighters swarmed around the Crystal Mountain like angry bees. The Council flagship's shields finally collapsed under the massive assault, but instead of trying to escape, the Prime Speaker made one final desperate move. "If the old order must die," he announced, "then everything dies with it." The crystal ship began to glow with dangerous energy. It was preparing to self-destruct with enough force to destroy everything within 1,000 kilometers. "All ships, retreat immediately," Wanho ordered. "That thing is going to explode." But Min Park's fighter squadron was too close to escape. The young pilot looked at her instruments and realized she had only one choice. "Sister Squadron, this is Min Park. I'm going in. Tell my brother I'm proud to fight for the Federation." Her ship accelerated directly toward the Council flagship, its biomechanical weapons charging for one final attack. If she could disrupt the self-destruct sequence, she might save hundreds of ships and thousands of lives. The Crystal Mountain exploded in a blast of light that could be seen from dozens of star systems away. When the glare faded, the Council flagship was gone, and so was Min Park. But her sacrifice had worked. The explosion was contained, and the Council fleet was left without its supreme commander. Leaderless and confused, many Council ships began surrendering or retreating. The great battle was over. The Federation had won, but at a terrible cost. The news of the great battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours, every civilized world knew that the mighty Galactic Council had been defeated by the upstart Terran Federation. The crystal flagship of the Valari Prime Speaker was gone, destroyed in a blast that marked the end of an era. Commander Taiho Nam sat in his diplomatic ship, receiving urgent messages from dozens of Council worlds. His communication board was flashing with so many incoming signals that his crew couldn't keep up with them all. "Sir, we have priority messages from the Thermal Singers, the Crystal Borers, and the Void Swimmers," reported his communications officer. "They're all requesting immediate Federation membership." "What about the other Council species?" Taiho asked. 17 more have sent preliminary inquiries. They want to know Federation terms for joining. Tai-Ho smiled grimly. 3 days ago, these same species had been preparing to fight alongside the Council against the Federation. Now they were scrambling to join the winning side, but not all the news was good. Intelligence agent C.O. Lim appeared on his screen with a worried expression. Commander, we have a problem. The remaining Council leadership has retreated to their core worlds, but they're not surrendering. They're calling for total war. How many ships do they still have? Tai-Ho asked. About 2,000. Not enough to win another big battle, but enough to cause serious damage. And they're talking about using weapons that have been banned for centuries. Meanwhile, on New Geneva Station, Admiral Jiho Park was dealing with his own crisis. The victory. Celebration had been cut short when reports came in about his sister Min's sacrifice. The young pilot who had saved the Federation fleet was being honored as a hero, but Jiho felt only emptiness. Dr. Hana Yoon found him standing alone in the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The Federation Council wants to give her the highest medal we have, she said quietly. She would have laughed at that, Jiho replied. Min never cared about medals. She just wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to be free. That's exactly why she deserves to be remembered. Jiho turned away from the window. What's the status of the defecting Council species? 23 have formally requested Federation membership. Another 15 are sending diplomatic missions to negotiate terms. The old Council is falling apart faster than we expected, but even as the Federation celebrated its growing membership, the remaining Council forces were preparing for desperate measures. In the hidden fortress world of Nexus Prime, the surviving Council leaders met in emergency session. The Nexari representative's mechanical body sparked with angry energy. The humans and their allies have destroyed everything we built over thousands of years. This cannot be allowed to stand. The Aquatic Federation delegate gurgled agreement. We must use the destroyer fleet. It is our only remaining option. The Sayu. Destroyer fleet has been sealed away for good reason, protested a smaller council member. Those weapons can sterilize entire star systems. Better empty systems than systems controlled by rebellious primitives, the Nexari replied coldly. The destroyer fleet was the Council's deepest secret. Planet-killing weapons that had been used once, long ago, to end a rebellion that had threatened Council rule. The weapons had been so terrible that the Council had promised never to use them again, but desperate times called for desperate measures. Agent C.O. Lim intercepted the activation codes 3 hours too late. By the time her warning reached Federation Command, the destroyer fleet was already moving toward Federation space. 12 ships, she reported to Admiral Jiho and the Federation leadership. Each one capable of destroying an entire planet. They're heading for our most populated worlds. President Kim's image appeared on the main screen from Earth. How long do we have? 6 days until they reach the Meridian homeworlds. 8 days until they get to human colonies. The room fell silent. Even with all their technological advantages, the Federation couldn't stop planet-killing weapons with conventional forces. There has to be something we can do, said Engineer Bora Han. Some way to stop them or turn their own weapons against them. Dr. Hana Yoon was already working frantically on her computer. The destroyer fleet ships are old, ancient technology that hasn't been updated in centuries. If we could get close... Enough! Get close enough for what? Admiral Jiho asked. The hive cluster bioviruses. If we could infect their computer systems the same way we did in the battle, we might be able to take control of the ships. Commander Tai-Ho Nam leaned forward. That would require getting our bioships within a few kilometers of the destroyer fleet. They'll be heavily defended. It's suicide, Admiral Jiho said flatly. Any ship that gets that close will be destroyed immediately. Not necessarily, said a new voice. Captain Yuna Ju had been standing quietly in the corner, but now she stepped forward. What if they don't see us coming? She activated a holographic display showing the route the destroyer fleet was taking through space. They're passing through the void fields, an area full of space debris and radiation storms. Perfect cover for a stealth approach. Our bioships can disguise themselves as space debris, Borahan added excitedly. If we're careful, we could get close enough to release the viruses. And then what? President Kim asked. Even if we take control of the ships, they're still planet killers. We can't just point them at Council worlds. Dr. Hana Yoon smiled for the first time in days. We don't point them at planets. We point them at each other. The plan was incredibly risky. 6. Federation bioships would disguise themselves as asteroids and drift into the destroyer fleet's path. When the enemy ships came close enough, the bioships would release clouds of computer viruses designed to take control of the ancient weapon systems. If it worked, the destroyer fleet would turn its own weapons on itself. If it failed, entire Federation worlds would die. Captain Yuna Ju volunteered to lead the mission personally. Someone needs to coordinate the virus release. It has to be perfectly timed, or the whole plan fails. I'm going too, Admiral Jiho announced. Sir, that's not necessary, Yuna protested. Yes, it is. My sister died to save the Federation. I'm not going to sit safely on a space station while others risk their lives to finish what she started. The bioships launched from New Geneva Station 12 hours later. They looked like ordinary space rocks, but hidden inside their organic hulls were some of the most advanced computer systems ever created. As they drifted through space toward their target, the crews remained silent. Any transmission could give away their position. Any engine burn could reveal their true nature. The destroyer fleet appeared on their sensors as 12 points of deadly light. Each ship was the size of a small moon, bristling with weapons that could crack planets like eggs. Remember, Admiral Jiho whispered into his communication device. We only get one chance. If they detect us too early, it's over. The bioships continued their silent drift, looking like nothing more than space. Debris caught in the gravitational wake of the massive Council vessels. When they were less than 5 kilometers away, Yuna gave the signal. Release the viruses. All ships, release now. Clouds of microscopic biomechanical organisms erupted from the hidden ships. They spread through space like invisible fog, seeking the computer systems of the destroyer fleet. For a moment, nothing happened. Then alarms began screaming aboard the Council ships as their ancient computers were invaded by technology they couldn't understand or resist. It's working, Yuna reported. We're gaining control of their systems. One by one, the planet-killing weapons turned away from Federation space. Their massive guns swiveled to face each other instead of innocent worlds. Fire, Admiral Jiho commanded. The destroyer fleet destroyed itself in a series of explosions that lit up half the galaxy. Weapons designed to kill worlds turned their fury on each other until nothing remained but expanding clouds of radioactive gas. The Council's last desperate gambit had failed. They had lost everything, their fleet, their weapons, and their ability to threaten anyone ever again. But more importantly, they had lost the loyalty of their own people. News of the destroyer fleet's deployment spread throughout Council space, and species that had remained neutral were horrified by their former government's willingness to commit genocide. By the end of the week, 37 of the original 43 Council species had requested Federation membership. The old order was dead. The new one was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the destruction of the destroyer fleet. The Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station was filled with representatives from over 200 species. Beings that had never spoken to each other before now worked together on problems that affected the entire galaxy. Ambassador Mina Lee stood at the central podium, no longer the expelled diplomat who had been thrown out of the old council in disgrace. She now held the title of Secretary General of the United Species. Assembly, elected by the unanimous vote of all member worlds. Friends and colleagues, she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall. Today marks the 5th anniversary of our victory over tyranny. But more importantly, It marks 5 years of proving that cooperation works better than control. The audience included humans, meridians, crystallines, former council species, and dozens of races that had never been part of any galactic government before. Some breathed air, others lived underwater, and a few existed as pure energy. But all of them had equal voices in the assembly. President Soman Kim watched from the observation deck, now in her 3rd term leading Earth's government. Beside her stood Admiral Ji-Ho Park, who commanded the Galactic Peace Corps, a military force dedicated to protecting smaller species from larger ones. Hard to believe it all started with us getting kicked out of their club, Ji-Ho said quietly. Best thing that ever happened to us, Somin replied. If they hadn't expelled humanity, we might never have learned what we were truly capable of. The transformation of the galaxy had been remarkable. Where the old council had ruled through fear and demanded tribute, the Federation governed through consensus and shared resources. Every species contributed what they could and received help when they needed it. The Meridian home worlds were now completely clean, their oceans teeming with life again. The water purification technology developed by engineer Bora Han had been shared freely with any world that needed it. No species was ever charged for environmental cleanup. It was considered a basic right. The hive clusters had revolutionized galactic communication by creating living computer networks that connected every Federation world. Information flowed freely between species, leading to scientific breakthroughs that benefited everyone. Even former Council worlds had prospered under the new system. The thermal singers, who had been forced to pay crushing taxes to the old government, now used their musical abilities to create art that brought joy to species across the galaxy. The crystal borers, once treated as simple miners, had become master engineers whose crystal structures were works of art as well as functional buildings. But the greatest change was in how conflicts were resolved. Instead of the old councils, threats and punishments, the Federation used mediation and negotiation. The Peace Corps existed not to conquer, but to protect worlds that couldn't defend themselves. The quarterly reports show remarkable progress, announced Dr. Hana Yoon, now the Federation's chief science coordinator. She gestured to holographic displays showing statistics from across known space. Famine has been eliminated on 47 worlds through agricultural sharing programs. 3 species have been saved from extinction through medical intervention. Over 100 primitive civilizations have been contacted and offered assistance without any demands for submission. This last point was especially important. The old council had either ignored primitive species or forced them to become servants. The Federation offered help and friendship with no strings attached. Commander Taiho Nam, now director of First Contact, had personally met with dozens of newly discovered civilizations. His approach was simple: offer assistance, share knowledge, and respect every species' right to choose their own path. We don't demand that new species join the Federation, he had explained to curious reporters. We show them what membership offers and let them decide for themselves. Most chose to join eventually, attracted by the benefits of cooperation and the protection of the Peace Corps, but some preferred independence, and the Federation respected that choice completely. Intelligence Officer Kyung Bae, now head of the Federation Security Service, reported that threats to galactic peace had almost disappeared. Pirates found no safe harbors when every system cooperated to track them down. Aggressive species discovered that attacking Federation members meant facing the combined fleets of 200 worlds. The galaxy is more peaceful now than it has been in over 1,000 years, he reported to the assembly. Not because we force peace on others, but because we've made cooperation more profitable than conflict. The economic transformation had been just as dramatic as the political one. Under the old council, wealth flowed from smaller species to larger ones. Member worlds paid taxes but received little in return. Trade agreements favored ancient species while younger civilizations struggled. The Federation had changed all that. Resources were shared based on need, not political power. Technology was freely exchanged between all members. Trade agreements were negotiated fairly, with representatives from every affected species participating in the discussions. Director Sung-Oh, who had overseen the construction of dozens of stations like New Geneva, reported that Federation space now contained over 500 major installations, space cities, research stations, and manufacturing centers that employed beings from hundreds of different worlds. "What we've built isn't just bigger than the old council," he said. "It's fundamentally different. Every facility is designed to accommodate multiple species. Every project involves cooperation between different civilizations." The old council structures still existed, but they had been transformed. The original council chamber was now a museum dedicated to the victims of authoritarian rule. Former council worlds used their resources to help species that had been oppressed by the old system. Even the surviving members of the old council leadership had been treated with more mercy than they deserved. Instead of execution or imprisonment, they had been sent to live quietly on remote worlds where they could cause no further harm. "We prove our superiority by being better than our enemies," President Kim had said when some people demanded harsher punishment. "If we become as cruel as they were, we haven't really won anything." As Secretary General Mina continued her speech, she reflected on the journey that had brought them all to this point. The angry young woman who had been expelled from the council chamber was gone, replaced by a leader who had helped build something greater than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The old council claimed that humans were too aggressive, too unpredictable, too dangerous for civilized space, she said. They were partially right. We are aggressive in fighting injustice. We are unpredictable because we try new solutions instead of repeating old failures. We are dangerous to anyone who thinks they have the right to control others. The audience erupted in approval, a sound that combined cheers, musical tones, clicking sounds, and energy pulses from dozens of different species. But we have learned that our greatest strength comes not from human characteristics, but from what we can accomplish when different species work together as equals. In the years since the war, amazing things had been discovered. Meridian underwater, cities combined with crystalline architecture created underwater palaces of impossible beauty. Hive cluster biotechnology merged with human engineering produced ships that seemed more alive than built. Energy beings worked with matter-based species to solve problems that neither could handle alone. The old council ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, Mina concluded. In 5 years, we have accomplished more than they did in their entire existence. Not because humans are superior to other species, but because cooperation is superior to domination. She paused, looking out at the incredible diversity of beings in the hall. Today, we are not just the United Species Assembly. We are proof that the future belongs to those who choose to work together instead of fight each other. As the ceremony ended and representatives began returning to their worlds, Admiral Jiho stood at the observation deck watching the various ships depart. Meridian bioships swam through space alongside human cruisers. Crystalline vessels that looked like flying diamonds shared flight paths with hive cluster organic craft. The sight reminded him of his sister Min, who had sacrificed her life to make this future possible. She would have been amazed to see species that had been enemies working together as friends. The council had expelled humanity because they feared what humans might become. They had been right to be afraid, but not for the reasons they thought. Humans hadn't become conquerors. They had become something far more dangerous to the old order. They had become the catalyst that transformed the galaxy into a place where everyone could be free. And that transformation was just the beginning.